One of the biggest weaknesses the Islanders have has been their power play the last couple of years, and bringing in Paul Mary now, having them for a full season now, Parise now, who's been a power play guy in Minnesota in the past, and even with the Devils when he was a young player. How do you think those kinds of acquisitions end up helping them out? Now, Paul Mary kind of evolved a bit later because he wasn't always there with Anaheim because Teemu Selanne was there, and then they had Cogliano, guys like that. But Parise, it seems like Minnesota always was that power play guy. Do you think those guys will be the first-line power play wingers to go along with that because they have the experience, or do you think maybe it could be somebody like Wahlstrom that evolves into that?
Wahlstrom has to. Without a doubt, has to be the first shoot option on the power play 1, not power play 2. When the power play goes, he's got to be one of the first 2 guys going over the boards. Barzal, and then it's got to be Wahlstrom at the very least. After that, you can kind of tinker around with how the lineups go, but it has to be Wahlstrom in that release position in the Ovi office, getting that clapper off, because there's nothing that he does better than shoot pucks at the net. But the problem with the power play, it's not even coaching anymore, because they've gone through 2 different power play coaches specifically and yielded the same results. It's definitely the personnel that they operate. And as much as I'm a Josh Bailey fan and a Josh Bailey stan, he does not belong on the power play. It's just not there. He's a great passer, but he's not a shot threat, right? Like, goalies know he's not going to be the one clapping one-timers from the right side. It's just not going to be him. So I don't really need to worry about it. I can cheat. And defensemen know that too. Give him space. Great. He's going to dipsy doodle. And yeah, he might find a pass and he might do something. But we know he's not going to shoot the puck. And that's a problem, because a power play is hinging, or successful power play, I should say, is hinging on the fact of getting pucks towards the net. Even if you miss them, it's creating that chaos and getting defensemen out of position. That's what a power play is supposed to do. And Josh Bailey doesn't help that necessarily. And so when it comes to getting a little bit more success on that power play, it's diminishing Josh Bailey's role on that first power play line, and maybe putting in someone like Pajot even. Who's just more of a shot threat than he is.
It's funny.
And that's the first thing they have to do.
It's funny. Our main writer who writes a lot for the Islanders, he can't stand Josh Bailey. You love him.
He hates Josh Bailey.
Yeah.
It's a whole nother level of hate. And you want to know something? Josh Bailey has had a pretty good career with the New York Islanders. If you look at, he was the 5th pick. He was Gart Snow's first pick he's ever as a GM. And a lot of Islander fans couldn't stand him. His first 3 years were horrible. They were like, oh, bust. And then finally, he started figuring things out. And he's been a big part of the growth of some of these players and some of these teams. He's been a leader to this team, and he is still an assistant captain of this team. They could have given it to Zdeno Chara. They could have given it to Zach Parise, guys that have been captains of teams, but they decided to stick with their roots and their guys. So I'm not surprised that Josh Bailey is still on his team, and he's one of the leaders, and a lot of people look up to him.
Yeah, well, he had some bad years, right? But what do you expect from a kid who's drafted 9th overall and then thrown right into the league, right? We forget that he was thrown right into the NHL right out of the draft and expected, cool, you're a 9th overall pick, go. And is go with what? What am I going with? There's nothing around me to do anything with. And sure enough, it took a while after that. But once it got going pretty well. So you can still say, I don't like the first 8 years of Josh Bailey's career, and I'm mad that happened. Cool, absolutely. But you can't then say, I am still mad about that even though he's bad. Okay, well, you can be mad about that, but glad about this. You can do both things. He's top 10 in franchise history for scoring, and people are still mad at him.
That's not saying much, that's for sure.
What more does he have to? But still, 10th.
Yeah.
That's pretty high. So, I don't know. I get that you can be mad for the first 8 years of his career. But I think we also have to realize that maybe he wasn't being put in the best position to begin with either.
So I'm going to take this second to say my favorite Islander's name, Jean-Gabriel Pageau. He's the only Islander I really worth mentioning to me. But
what about Mathew Barzal? What are you talking about?
Mathew Barzal is the all-star, obviously, but he's a homegrown Islander. So anyway, so real
See what
quick,
I deal with? I'm serious, man. That hairline is just getting me sick to my stomach. I mean, the shine of your forehead is making me even sick.
I mean, we can turn the lights off.
We could, but how are we going to see our guest?
I mean, the screen.
Yeah.
Well, no, the guest light will be fine.
Yeah.
It's just our lights will be off.
Well, you're right. Maybe we won't have to see your face. Well, that'll be good.
You can turn our camera off. We'll just leave
That's true.
yours and Michelle's on.
That's true. Go ahead.
Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Oh, good. Sorry. Normally he goes on tangents.
Could you
So
just
anyway,
spit it out already?
I'm trying to, but every time I open my mouth, you beat me to the punch. So can you stop? Thank you. I need to get paid more to do this. So the Islanders are a pretty young team, and they've been building up this draft capital because they were god-awful for so long. So in the weeds, do you see them calling up another guy that can go along with Wahlstrom, go along with Dobson, or you think that this team is pretty much just set in stone how it is?
They just drafted one.
They did. Aturatu is one heck of a player, even though he's not getting time or the light of day really with Karapat. But like he'll get his chances, and he signed to ELC, so he'll be here next year, and then he'll do his thing then.
They loved him, by the way, in the preseason. They loved him.
Yeah, they
Barry
absolutely
Trotz loves him. Barry Trotz says he reminds him of a younger Zach Parise. So
yeah.
That's
the thing with Ratu is that he's better for a North American game than a European game, so that's probably why he's not standing out as much over there. So when he comes over here, it's going to be incredible. But with the Islanders now today, they're a veteran team. They're not really relying on prospects so much, but there still is a hole on the left side of defense when it comes to transporting the puck. And even then, there's a hole when it comes to transporting the puck in general on that blue line. Like Noah Dobson still isn't necessarily being trusted enough to carry that puck. So when it comes to being a puck transporter, there's no one better in the system than Robin Salo, who's absolutely not dominating the AHL, but showing that he's a step above already what is already there in the Islanders system. When you just look at the offensive and defensive point share that he's bringing towards the Bridgeport Islanders, it's night and day compared to the rest of the defensemen that are there. Most of them established AHLers, and I wouldn't say punking them, but like he's much better than all of them.
You know,
so
I'm sorry. With Robin Salo Robin Salo should have made this team. Okay, the only reason why he didn't is because at the last minute they signed Zdeno Chara. But I believe that whoever gets hurt, and there'll be an injury, Robin Salo will come up, and Robin Salo will earn his spot, and he will make this team, and he will stay on this team. He is the future. He's one of the big futures. And the Islanders, the reason why, if you look at what Lou Lamoriello has done in the last 2 years, he's traded away his first and second round picks because what Garth Snow, you could say whatever you want about Garth Snow. And Garth Snow, as far as bringing in free agents, he's been horrible, absolutely horrible. We all know about Andrew Ladd, and all these different contracts that he's brought in that has really, and Lou Lamoriello had to really clean that up in the offseason. But the one thing he did right was draft, and he's drafted very, very well. He drafted a lot of great defensemen. And if you look at the defensemen they have in the farm system right now, the Islanders are still very much stacked. They have Bodie Wild right now in their farm system, who's going to be a very big, important piece in the future to this defense. They've got defensive prowess, something that the Rangers have been trying to look for the last couple of years. And I'm not throwing the Rangers under the bus. I see you looking at me, but
because you could have mentioned any other team in the league.
Because we have argued this, that the Rangers, over the years, they go after these offensive players where their weakness has always been defense. And the fact that they haven't drafted, and when they do draft, they draft these defensemen that are highly overrated in going into the draft, and they don't turn out to be anything. Fox, their best defenseman, was a guy that they traded for. Okay, so he wasn't even theirs. So again, I'm looking at the Islanders. You were just talking about Rudy, whatever his name is, Ratu. He's a guy that a lot of people are speaking on. How about the kid that they drafted later in the rounds that everybody's talking about? Could be the steal of the draft, DeBouche, or whatever his name is.
William
Dufour, which they're saying that this kid could be the steal of the 2020 draft. He has 9 points in the last week. So
9 goals in 10 games.
Yeah, it's crazy. So
and that's a 5th round pick, and the Athletic, they just did a redraft of the 2020 draft, and they boosted him up from 152 to 55,
which is the second round.
100-point jump. That's insane.
Yeah. So you talk about, everybody says, well, Lou Lamoriello doesn't draft right. Well, his first draft, he drafted Oliver Wahlstrom, who a lot of people believe will be a 30, 40 goal scorer. Noah Dobson, who a lot of people believe will be an elite defenseman in this league. And then if you look at the other drafts that he's had, he slowly but surely is building the roster and the future of this organization the way he sees fit, that will fit in the way Barry Trotz is pushing it. So my question to you is, when you look at the Islanders as a whole, and I love what they did in the offseason. I love what Lou Lamoriello did. He extended Polak. He extended Pelech. I believe the best defensive pairing in all of hockey. When you look at what he has done and got him on the cheap, he got 2 players for the price of 1. I mean, he slowly but surely, Lou Lamoriello is stamping his name to this team and this roster. This team is practically going to be together for the next 3 years again. Practically all the players were signed and ready to go. When you look at the Islanders, is this the time now for the next 3 or 4 years where the Islanders can make a run and win not 1 but maybe 2 Stanley Cups?
Yeah, if you're asking, is the window open? Absolutely. You ask someone else, they might say the window's closed. And my retort to that would be like, didn't it just open? Like a lot of people have said that like last year, like, oh, the window's closed on the Islanders. And I'm going, how? It just opened. Did you slam it shut? Because that's not fair necessarily. I would definitely say they're in their window. You're right. Like you look at the contracts they've got, the only guys coming off the books as UFAs, Cal Clutterbuck, Zach Parise. Well, that makes a whole lot of sense. And then you've got Chara, Andy Green. Okay, the like 3 oldest guys on the roster, 4 actually with Cal. So the 4 oldest guys on the roster are coming off. Some of them, Cal specifically, is going to be retained for a cheaper price. And then you look at RFAs. Kiefer Bellows, well, hasn't really done a whole lot necessarily. And then you got Noah
They're going to
Dobson.
trade him. I think they're going to use him in a trade. I think Kiefer Bellows. Right. Yeah, I think Kiefer Bellows would, if they go after somebody at the trade deadline like we were just talking about Vladimir Tarasenko, Kiefer Bellows will be one of those guys that they're going to put in that trade because he's a goal scorer. I like Kiefer. I just don't think he fits to this team.
Yeah, and he's got the first round pedigree, right? Like, so he's got 19th overall pick. Maybe, and look, Peter Chiarelli is in a power of position at St. Louis. So, like, that bodes well for the Islanders already. Immediately. It's going to be a 1-for-1 trade for not Zach Parise, Kiefer Bellows and Vladimir Tarasenko, and they're going to keep money because it's Peter Chiarelli, and he just seems to do that when it comes to the Islanders. I don't understand, but it happens. But to get to that, like, you look at the core of this team, and the core of this team is together for a while. The only important piece, and I'm using air quotes, well, I shouldn't use air quotes, he's the most important part of the team, is Mathew Barzal, whose contract comes up in 2 years. But if anyone thinks they're not going to re-sign him,
you're an idiot.
Again.
You're an idiot. Yeah. They're not going to do the same thing they did with John Tavares. No way in hell. I believe by next year, before his final year, they're going to extend him. They're absolutely. First of all, what's going to be coming off the books in 2 years?
I'm not saying
they're going to have They're going to give him $10.5 million. He'll take that. He loves the island. He's not. First of all, after what John Tavares did to Mathew Barzal after he decided to leave the Islanders and called him the other guy, the kid
who won the Calder.
The kid, yeah, the kid. He didn't even call him by his name. He disrespected him. I don't see Mathew Barzal leaving and walking away from the Islanders. I believe that if the Islanders are a championship competitive team year in and year out, why would you leave this team? This team is built. You have all these old guys coming off the boards, and then you have Robin Salo coming. You have Ruti coming. You have this other guy coming, that other guy coming. They're going to have money coming off the boards where they're going to be able to bring in another player. Why would he? And by the way, a new stadium, a new place to play, new ice, the house that Mathew Barzal built. I mean, seriously. He's 24 years old. I mean, he's got his whole career in front of him. Yeah, he's going to be – if you don't think he's the next captain for the Islanders, I don't know what you see. I mean,
no, he's your best player. He's your most important.
He's been their best player for the last 3 years.